Welcome to chaomix. Sonic Frontiers is finally here. A lot has happened in the 5 years since the last Sonic game. We got 2 entire movies, several remasters of previous games, crazy collaborations, fantastic comic books, and the announcement of several new TV shows. And with Sonic's renewed prevalence, an astronomical influx of new fans started appearing. Now more than ever, all eyes have been on this next Sonic game to really knock it out of the park. Plus, this 5-year period in between games isn't something us Sonic fans are very used to. But it gave us a lot of time to think over our current feelings on the Sonic series as a whole, learning to appreciate less appreciated games, questioning the direction of others, where we wanted the series to go, where we didn't want it to go. But I think out of anyone, Sonic Team especially took this time to reflect on these same exact things. After all, a lot is riding on this next Sonic game, especially with every non-game aspect of Sonic succeeding so much. And it feels like the past 5 years have been leading up to this very moment. So now that Sonic Frontiers is finally out, is this truly the new breakthrough era for Sonic? Well, I think I can confidently say now that yes, I think it is. Suzu, don't lick your butt on camera. But before we continue, I'd like to say that this video is made possible by Manscaped.com. Manscaped is the global brand for men's grooming and hygiene products, and has all the best tools and solutions for controlling those potential odor zones on your body with the utmost care. Trust me, after using their products, the difference really is night and day. They were kind enough to send me their all-in-one performance package 4.0, so let's see what we got here. First up, we got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which uses advanced skin-safe technology to minimize any collateral damage to your important areas. Also, this bad boy is wireless and waterproof, so you can literally take it wherever you need to get the job done. When it's time to charge, just hook it up to the cordless charging dock. These LED lights tell you how much charge you have. A full charge can last up to 90 minutes of use. It also has a travel lock feature you can engage and disengage by rapidly clicking 3 times. Fellas, I'm serious, they really thought of everything with this. The Performance Package 4.0 also comes with the Crop Preserve Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray, which are products I'm pretty sure I can't live without now. Trust me, I've seen the light and I'm not going back. Apply the Preserver after a shower for all-day odor coverage, and the Reviver whenever you need a nice spritz of cooling aloe vera to quickly spruce yourself up. Visit manscaped.com and use code chaomix to get all this with 20% off plus free international shipping. And for a limited time, 2 items, the Shed Travel Bag and the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs, will come bundled for free. Thank you so much to manscaped.com for sponsoring today's video, and with all that being said, let's continue with the review. You guys, Sonic Frontiers made me love Sonic again. And I say this as someone who's been pretty unhappy with the direction of the series for the past decade. After completing the game after a little over 16 hours, the experience I had with Sonic Frontiers has me extremely hyped about everything Sonic now and in the future. Look, Sonic Frontiers isn't perfect. I'm not going to pretend that it doesn't have any issues. Poppin', weird graphical glitches, slightly awkward voice acting at moments, troubled story pacing towards the end, but there are so many high points that overshadow these flaws for me. The lore, the characterization, and even the gameplay are all such a huge step in the right direction. And I'm happy that the day has finally come where I can say, Sonic is finally cool again. Oh boy, where do I even start? Well, I mean, right out of the gate, the story is something that you're going to immediately notice is such a huge upgrade from the past decade of games. Sonic Frontier starts off with Eggman using his newly created AI to harness the power of the ancient technology of the Starfall Islands. However, something goes awry and he gets pulled into the very portal he uses to hijack the island. Meanwhile, Sonic, Tails, and Amy are on their way to the Starfall Island themselves in search of the Chaos Emeralds, which were mysteriously drawn to the locale. Suspecting something fishy, the group embarks via the tornado to check out what's going on. But plans get interrupted when they all get sucked into a portal and split up in a strange digital dimension called Cyberspace. Sonic manages to escape by himself, but must save his friends who remain trapped, all while uncovering the mysteries of the Starfall Islands. Without spoiling anything, just know that there are some huge reveals here that were made with the most hardcore of Sonic lore fanatics in mind. The implications of some of the stuff that happens in this game are insane, and I'm sure people will be talking about and theorizing the lore for a long time, or at least until the next Sonic game hopefully pulls us in even deeper. Also, without spoiling anything, the characterization for every character is done extremely well, in stark contrast to how they've been handled in most of the recent games. Ian Flynn did an amazing job depicting each of these characters, and there's some really amazing moments that do a lot of work to redeem some of these characters that us fans have been upset about for a long time. Also, Sage might honestly be one of the coolest characters since Shadow the Frickin' Hedgehog. I do have some gripes and huge questions about the narrative of this game, but I can't really get into that without getting into spoilers, so I think I'll be saving that for another video. So yeah, make sure to subscribe so you're in the loop on when that goes up. But anyways, Sonic Frontiers is quite literally a new frontier for the Sonic series, being the first time Sonic is playable in an open world, or open zone as the game likes to market it. The Starfall Islands, which consist of 5 islands, are the main hubs for gameplay. Within these open zones, Sonic is tasked with saving his friends by collecting their memory tokens, fighting Guardians to collect gears, using these gears to access cyberspace levels for vault keys, using these vault keys to unlock the Chaos Emeralds and become supersonic, and taking on the colossal bosses called Titans. Rinse and repeat for each island. The open world gameplay takes some very obvious inspiration from Breath of the Wild, but I don't think this is a bad thing at all. We start off with a completely empty map, but by completing various missions, it slowly opens up. It doesn't take very long to start seeing all the little things we can do here. At the beginning, it may even seem overwhelming, but totally in the best way possible. So many times I'd be heading towards an objective, but get completely sidetracked by an interesting platforming bit or a quick puzzle. There's a huge variety here too. Lots of creative platforming formations to run through, interesting puzzles to solve with Sonic's new ability, the Psy-Loop, and a ton of unique minigames. Not only are these all really fun to do, but you're always rewarded with something for doing them, at least for the first time. I was super relieved by the pure amount of things to do in this open world, because one huge worry that I had coming into this game was that the open world would feel empty, especially without the crazy level geometry that the series is usually known for. Sure, I still wish things like loop-de-loops and half-pipes were present, but with all the other things you're able to interact with, it's far from empty. But I will say, at a certain point, it can be hard to remember which platforming segments you've already done. Oftentimes, I found myself accidentally going through something I've already completed and gotten the reward for. Especially once you start unlocking things, the map can look very cluttered with rails, springs, pulleys, and platforms, and sometimes it's hard to tell 2 separate platforming bits apart since they can really blend into each other. And with the 2D sections, they can sometimes trap you inside of them, making it so that you have to complete it to leave, and with nothing to gain at the end. But despite these issues, the open-endedness of the gameplay was extremely liberating, and I haven't felt this much freedom since the Sonic Adventure games all the way back on the Dreamcast. Sometimes I would turn my brain off and go into a flow state of just aimlessly parkouring around the open world. It's such an amazing feeling to be able to freely run around an expansive playground. It's like a sort of freeform jazz. So how does Sonic control? Overall, I'd say his controls in the open world are adequate. It's like a hybrid between Sonic Adventure and Forces controls. You even have the ability to change his movement stats in the options menu. I played the entire game with all of his stats maxed out because I thought it gave me the most control. But even with these stats maxed out, I have to admit that there were a bunch of small things about Sonic's player controller that felt a bit off. Any semblance of momentum is unfortunately purely an illusion. And I know this is weird to say since physics in literally any game are fake, obviously, but the illusion of these physics are disrupted a little bit too easily. Slope jumping is only something you can really do on rails, not grounded terrain. No matter how fast you're traveling, Sonic stops on a dime when you let go of the control stick. Uphill or downhill, it doesn't really seem to affect Sonic's acceleration to an extremely noticeable degree, if at all. Skidding downhill can be super janky. Moving the analog stick during a 2D loop-de-loop will have Sonic instantly detach. Sonic is often overly magnetized to the ground. Even when trying to run off these sharp 90-degree edges, he'll sometimes stay stuck to the rotation of the structure and nosedive down. And as cool as this air tricking state is when running off a ledge, it almost feels like a way to cover up Sonic not being able to properly launch himself off ramps with momentum. However, these are all things that I eventually got used to, and the more I played the game, the more I realized why they designed Sonic's player controller like this. These limitations were purposely designed to prevent players from abusing the physics to take huge shortcuts and perform potential sequence breaks. Personally, I think Sonic games should always try to embrace the potential and upper limits of their physics systems and not try to limit them. But even so, I can only imagine some of the shortcuts players are going to find anyways, and feel like speedruns of this game are still going to be very impressive. The controls are something I'd love to see Sonic Team improve for the next game by adding proper momentum physics and level design to actually complement it. It would be such a huge step up and open the door for so much more freeform gameplay potential. Combat is another large focus in this game, decking out Sonic with a bunch of flashy moves to use on a wide variety of enemies and mini-bosses. Listen, I usually prefer my Sonic games without combat, but I think it was done pretty tastefully here. Unlike Sonic Unleashed, which made you completely change characters and essentially the entire genre of video game you were playing, you're still always Sonic here. It makes the switch from speedy gameplay to combat completely seamless. And overall, there's just a lot less enemies to deal with, so it's a lot less tedious. Sonic has an entire skill tree too, giving him some of the coolest abilities he's ever had. Like, there's some moves straight out of Dragon Ball Z here. It's awesome. My only gripe is that I was able to unlock all the abilities pretty early on, so it felt like I was collecting skill points for nothing for a large portion of the game. I think if there were more moves, or maybe the cost to acquire each skill was greater, then the pacing would have worked better. Also, the skill tree strictly gives Sonic moves for combat, not traversal, and I feel like that's kind of a big missed opportunity. I think unlocking new moves for traversal really would have opened the door for some nice backtracking, like going back to reaching new puzzles that you couldn't before or something. Sonic has 4 stats that can be upgraded by collecting these little rock creatures called Coco, and these blue and red fruits, and then bringing them to either the Elder Coco or the Hermit Coco. Sonic is able to upgrade his combat power, defense, maximum amount of rings, and his speed. Each one is pretty self-explanatory and provides a nice feeling of progression and something to sort of grind for if you're looking to max out all of Sonic's abilities. Doing so will definitely help you out in Sonic's battles against the Guardians, the many mini-bosses you'll encounter across each open zone. This is where both your platforming and combat abilities will be put to the test. The variety of mini-bosses is truly amazing, and they all require using Sonic's many different skills in unique ways to defeat. If you see a new mini-boss for the first time, please do yourself a favor and challenge them, because they're technically optional since the gears you obtain after beating them are also obtainable through other means. Also, mini-bosses will respawn, so if you ever really enjoy taking down one of them, you're able to do so as many times as you want and get gears for it too. You know how a lot of Sonic games will have some sort of secondary, more gimmicky playstyle? Well, for Sonic Frontiers, that second playstyle is literally an entire game's worth of boost levels. The gameplay that was once considered the main course in games like Sonic Unleashed and Generations is now the mini-game of Sonic Frontiers. It's basically like if you took Sonic Forces and said the entirety of its content was only the mini-game for an even bigger game. Yeah, we've come a long way, and I think that should show you the pure scale that we're dealing with here. These boost levels most resemble those from Sonic Forces, which are considered the weaker gameplay of the boost titles. But it certainly is different enough where I would consider it its own flavor. Like, not necessarily better or worse, just different. The first thing you'll notice when taking control of Sonic here is that he's a lot slower. Not just his base running speed, but also his boost, which may be the biggest difference between this game and the other boost games. The boost in Sonic Frontiers acts more like a sprint rather than turning Sonic into an unstoppable bullet like before. Instead of a boost meter that you constantly build up by collecting rings or destroying enemies, it depletes like the stamina gauge from Breath of the Wild, meaning you'll have to lay off the boost to recharge your stamina for a few seconds, and figuring out when that moment is part of the boost management element you'll need to get good at. In the air, you're able to use the boost to perform an air dash, which can give you a bit of extra height and a quick burst of forward speed. Because of that, it can kind of act as a third jump when needed. Overall, the boost has been severely nerfed compared to its previous iterations. Now, you might automatically assume that this is all a bad thing, but I actually think the reduced speed lends itself to more precise platforming a lot of the time. Sure, I think Sonic could benefit from being a tiny bit faster, but because the reduced speed actually makes precise platforming more viable, there's simply a lot more platforming in these boosted levels, and they actually feel pretty satisfying to speedrun through. But something that isn't going to satisfy a lot of people, yes, the elephant in the room, is that these levels reuse a ton of assets and level layouts from previous games. And after 10 years of Sonic Team doing this and getting away with it, this might not be something some people are going to be able to overlook. Yes, I think it would have been better if the game had uniquely designed level themes and layouts, but personally, I think when you're actually playing the game, it almost doesn't matter. The controls feel different enough where when going through a level based off of something like Sonic Adventure 2, for example, it's going to feel like an entirely different experience anyways. And reusing assets is what allowed Sonic Team to make so many of these levels in the first place. I think once you play through Frontiers and realize how the cyberspace levels truly fit into the overall gameplay loop, the choice of how they were designed begins to make a lot more sense. These levels can be pretty short, a lot of them being beatable in only a bit over the 1 minute mark. But you're meant to replay these levels several times in order to complete each of the 4 objectives to obtain the Chaos Emerald Vault Keys. Throughout all of the cyberspace levels, these 4 objectives are more or less going to be the exact same. Reaching the goal, clearing with an S-rank time, finishing with a certain amount of rings, and finding all the red star rings. You can replay levels to complete objectives one by one, or you can try knocking them all out in one go. There were quite a few cyberspace levels where I would accidentally get all 4 objectives. And I say accidentally because during those specific runs, I was purposely taking my time and even backtracking to collect the 5 red star rings. And I'd somehow still get an S rank. There are some levels that are way too lenient, and then there's 1-2, which is literally the second cyberspace level in the game and somehow manages to be the single hardest level to S rank. I feel like the balancing of these cyberspace levels was a bit off. Especially because I was playing on hard mode, I expected a lot of these levels to be just as difficult as 1-2, and was pretty disappointed that I ended up getting S ranks on a ton of levels by accident. So after collecting your vault keys, whether that be from cyberspace, fishing, or exploring, you can start using them to unlock the Chaos Emeralds. And after unlocking 6 of the 7 emeralds, Sonic will need to collect the 7th emerald on the Titans themselves. I don't want to spoil too much here because I really believe the Titan encounters need to be experienced blind. Trust me, these are some of the greatest, most hype, and satisfying action sequences in all of Sonic history. The only unfortunate part is that you can't refight these bosses, so please cherish them while you're there and prepare yourself for peak Sonic. Everything from the cinematics, the actual supersonic gameplay, the music. Oh my god, the music. These tracks have become my new workout music, and I've been listening to them non-stop ever since I first heard them. Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens is on vocals for a lot of these tracks, and they go insanely hard. In fact, all of the vocal tracks for this game are absolutely amazing, and I think will go down as some of the best in the series. While not perfect, Sonic Frontiers is a huge step in the right direction, and I had an amazing time with it. And I'm not just talking about as a Sonic fan, but just as a video game fan in general. For the first time in such a long time, I'm actually excited to be a part of this ride and to see where the series goes from here. Here's hoping that whatever Sonic Team does next builds on top of what really worked here. Sonic fans, please play Sonic Frontiers. It's been a long time coming, but Sonic might finally be back. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more content similar to this. I'm going to be uploading a whole bunch of Sonic Frontiers content in the coming weeks. So yeah, you definitely don't want to miss that. In the comments below, let me know what you thought of Sonic Frontiers if you've already played it. Thank you so much to my amazing channel members, and with all that being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic day. Peace.